Hey guys, it's the Cheap Guy back, and today is a very important one for us because the biggest expense most people have is the roof over their head. So whether you own or rent, that usually takes most expensive thing you have to pay for. And if we can really start saving money, we need to focus on some of the big things and the small things, but I just figured let's start with the biggest one ever. Okay, so a lot of people talk about house hacking. House hacking is basically you buy a house, let's say a 3-bedroom house or something like that, and you rent out 2 of the rooms, and those roommates then pay for your mortgage and your taxes and insurance, and you live for free. Or maybe you buy a duplex, you live on one side and you rent out the other side, and they cover all your or most of your expenses. House hacking is a great idea because you're really building up your net worth and you're getting property and you're having someone else pay for it. It's really a great way, and there's tons of different ways to do it. House hacking is wonderful if you can do it. Unfortunately, a lot of people cannot house hack. Why? Because house hacking requires certain things such as down payments, such as credit scores, such as income. You have to qualify for the loan to get the property to start house hacking. And if your debt to income ratio is off, meaning you don't make enough money and you have other payments such as this new mortgage you're taking on, you're not going to qualify. You do need some sort of down payment. There are some loan programs that allow you to get in with 0 down. But the most common and easiest to get would be an FHA loan, which is going to allow you to put 3.5% down. There are some conventional private mortgage lenders that also compete, such as Better.com, Better Mortgage, which will give you that 3.5% down mortgage as well. However, when you're doing the 3.5%, you still need the 3.5%. So if you're buying a $100,000 house, you need $3,500 plus closing costs. Let's just say those are going to be about $5,000. You need about $8,000 to $9,000. A lot of people don't have $8,000 to $9,000. Okay, and that's just if you're buying a $100,000 house. If you're buying here in LA, you're going to be buying probably around minimum $400,000 to $600,000 on the cheapest end. So if you don't make enough income, if you don't have the down payment, and if you do not have credit, in other words, or bad credit, house hacking's out of the question, and you are most likely renting right now. Okay, so if you're renting, that is probably your biggest monthly expense. People spend a lot of money on rent. And sure, it's easier, you don't have taxes, you don't have expenses, but that's money that you're throwing away paying off someone's mortgage every month. And if you can get the cost of rent down, you can save a lot of money. So this is where being cheap comes into play in a big way. But it means doing something that most people wouldn't or don't think of or don't want to do. So far in my life, I have never spent more than $300 a month on rent. But let me explain to you how I have kept my rent below $300 living in places like San Diego, Santa Barbara, Los Angeles, and Miami. And that is where I would call it rent hacking. So if you can't house hack, let's try rent hacking. Rent hacking is basically getting your rent down in the same way that house hacking is getting your mortgage down. And that means involving more people. See, when you house hack a condo, say a 3-bedroom condo, and you live in there alone, or you take on 2 roommates. Most people who buy a place, they don't want a house hack because they don't want roommates. That's why they bought in the first place. However, we have already determined that house hacking is a no-brainer, and it's something you really want to do because now you're living for free and you have people paying down your mortgage. Rent hacking is the same principle. You are just bringing on more people, often in a way that most people would not find appetizing. The way I've done the below 300 in all these places, except for a few weird exceptions, has been getting lots of roommates. Okay, I just moved from Miami, and I was in something called a crash pad. It's the airline industry's answer to not being around much. And it's basically run like a hostel. You have bunk beds and rooms, and you have 10 people in a 2-bedroom apartment. Everybody's gone most of the time, and so sometimes you're there by yourself or with one other person, and everyone's paying $270, all utilities included, and that's the entirety of your living expenses, including internet. In fact, that place included a gym. That's kind of an extreme one, though, because there were so many people in a 2-bedroom. 10 beds in a 2-bedroom? Yeah, that's way beyond most people's comfort level. However, I just saw an apartment on Hot Pads in LA that was listed for $575. And that's way below what you can find around here. In general, anything below $1,000 is going to be an interesting situation. So I clicked on this, and it was a nice looking place, and then when I got to the bedroom, I noticed there were 2 sets of bunk beds. So there was 4 people. What this person was renting out this 1 bedroom for was 4 beds at $575. If you do the math, okay, that means they are renting that place for $2,300, that 1 bedroom. That bedroom may rent for $1,600 or $1,800, so he's sort of doing a hybrid house hack rent hack by renting by the bed. However, if, say, that place rented for $1,600 and you were willing to do that yourselves, set up 2 sets of bunk beds, share the place completely, now you're looking at $400 per month and not $575. So you're rent hacking yourself by sharing a unit with 3 other people. In my experience, the people who are willing to live like this tend to get along and work things out. So that is a real life case of in LA of one that somebody else is trying to make money off, that if you just did yourself, you could get your rent down fairly low. When it comes time to rent hack and you decided, I'm okay sharing my room, I'm okay sharing it with 1 or 2 or maybe 3 people, and you decide you're going to work it out and make it happen to save that money. There are some tricks involved here, okay? A lot of people will start out by saying, I need to get the place myself, which is one way to do it. And so what they'll do is they'll find a studio because they can't really afford a bigger place, and then they'll try to find a roommate to cut their rent in half. That's not such a bad way to go. However, you are not going to maximize your savings on a studio or a 1-bedroom. In fact, when you start to look at the per bedroom cost, you are going to decrease the per bedroom cost with each additional bedroom. So when I'm looking to rent hack a place, I am looking for a 3-bedroom minimum. So if a 1-bedroom is, say, $1,000, your rent would be $500. If that in that same apartment complex they had 2-bedroom units for $1,400, and you did 2 and 2, now your rent is $350. So you went from $500 to $350. You're living in the same apartment complex. You have the same nice living room, nice kitchen. Everything's the same, but because you have that extra bedroom, you are now saving money. When you move into the 3-bedroom, chances are you're going to get an extra bathroom as well. Be what, 533-33 by I picked horrible numbers. Let's just say it's $1,800 for the 3-bedroom, which I don't even think it'd be that much based on the other 2 numbers. But let's say it's $1,800 for the 3-bedroom, 222. Okay, now you're each paying $300 a month, and you have an extra bathroom. So you see, when you get to the 3-bedroom, you're doing a lot better. However, the entry point to the 3-bedroom is much more difficult if you're trying to start this yourself. So, if you cannot afford a 3-bedroom, say the deposit and the rent completely yourself, and you have to start at the studio, you have no other choice. You cannot qualify or afford a bigger place, and you have no one you can live with, no one you can reach out to, and you don't even want to start trying to find roommates. You want to choose the place first, then go ahead and get the 1-bedroom, and then find a roommate. Okay, so through HotPads, Apartments.com, Zillow, Craigslist, basically look for a roommate who also is willing to share the place with you in order to have cheaper rent. Because now you're in LA and you're renting a studio apartment for $1,000 and you're putting on these sites rent for $500. Anybody who's looking to save money is going to click on your situation. Now remember, there was that guy in LA who was doing a 1-bedroom split 4 ways for $575. Anybody considering that place would jump to live with you at your place. So you would have multiple applications, multiple people to meet, and you could really choose who you vibed with and who you think would be a good roommate living situation. Then, if that worked out and it was going well, you could then potentially graduate to the 2 or 3-bedroom together, and then together decide how to fill out the rest of the rooms. That is one pathway to continually get your rent down as you go. Another thing you can do is go onto Craigslist, go onto one of these sites, and find one of these already communal living type situations. Then you move in there, make sure it's month to month, because if everybody there is a complete lunatic and you don't want to stay there, then you're only there for a month, okay? And so the reason you want month to month is 2 reasons. 1, it gives you an out if it's a bad situation, but 2, it allows you to start rent hacking yourself. So now you're going into this situation, you're living with others, and if you all get along and you're doing great, you talk about how if all 4 of you get your own apartment, then you could actually pay less than you're paying now and have a better situation. Then that allows you to start out with a 2-bedroom, or if everybody's willing to take the risk and pay a little extra on the front end, you could go ahead and move to a 3-bedroom and try to find 2 more people. That is an ideal situation. You may not get along with all 3 other people, but maybe 1 or even 2 are people that would be willing to make the jump with you. So that's one way to sort of get into a place and start finding roommates before the apartment. So the first one was find the apartment, then the roommates. The second one was find the apartment with the roommates and go rent hack yourself. The last way would be to get on Craigslist or to get on one of these other websites, advertise you're looking for roommates, or maybe even advertise a potential place you could rent with another person, and then when they contact you, say, I haven't moved in yet, I'm looking for someone to rent it with me. That would be a lot more legwork, and that would be a lot more frustrating, because you would have to deal with all kinds of yahoos, or people would get mad at you because they thought you had a place. It depends on how you do it. Or if you just say, I'm looking for a roommate, you may not get as many responses because people may be scared of you and wondering who you are. This is obviously going to be easier for women finding other women, and you have to be very clear about that. If you're not clear, you're going to get a lot of creeps and a lot of weirdos. It's harder for men because, unfortunately, there's a lot of just weirdos on Craigslist who are looking to trade sexual favors for rent, and it's just not really anything you want to get involved in, and so people generally stay away. However, it is possible to find somebody that you would get along with and find living with a very palatable experience. And so this is the one route that takes the most legwork, but it's the one that would give you the savings from day one. The first route is the easiest, but it's the most costly to start. The second one is the middle ground, where it's cheaper than renting your own place, but you're paying a premium because you're paying, say, the owner or the landlord who's trying to house/rent hack to raise his rents. And then the last one, you're starting the savings right away, but it's going to take the most work and it's going to possibly be the most frustrating. And like I said, if it's an $1,800 3-bedroom, you have gotten your rent down to that magic number of $300. With all that said, the more bedrooms you get, the better it gets. If you find a 4-bedroom house or even a 5-bedroom house, you can then divide it by 10 people. Utilities get cheaper, rent gets cheaper. However, when you're dealing with 10 personalities, it gets a little hairier perhaps. Lastly, I just want to say that when you rent hack and you get these places for cheaper, the savings that you're getting is tremendous. If the only place you could rent on your own was a studio for $1,000, and in that same apartment complex, you got your rent down to $300, you are saving $700 a month on rent. However, that's not the only money you're saving, because now your fixed costs, such as internet, is not just your cost, but now it's being split 6 ways. So you just saved, if your internet's $60, now you're paying $10. That's an additional $50 savings. Okay? Even variable utility costs, such as electricity and water and gas, these also become cheaper when you split them 6 ways, because your base costs, even though the amount of usage goes up, your base costs get split 6 ways and it ends up being cheaper. Not as big of a savings as your fixed costs, such as internet, but there are still savings there. And so this begins to save you more and more money. So if you went from that studio for $1,000 living on your own to a 3-bedroom in the same apartment complex paying $300 and splitting all your utilities, you are now potentially saving $800 a month that you were spending before just to live. And so all of a sudden, you are now able to save a tremendous amount of money. I mean, we're talking almost $10,000 a year. If you lived in this place for just 3 years and you applied some of the other savings we'll talk about, and you end up with $30,000 in your savings account or in your money market account or whatever it would be, now all of a sudden you can move from rent hacking to house hacking, because you have that down payments slash closing costs money, as well as maybe some startup money to buy some furniture and things like that. So think about it. If you apply it, I guarantee your savings rate and the amount of extra money you will have will go through the roof, and you will never regret it. So rent hacking is the way to go. Thanks for watching, and we'll continue to share money saving tips and extreme examples in future episodes.